Hello, friends, and thank you for joining me here at Non Toxic Home. I am very glad that you are here. I don't know if you've been thinking about cell phones lately, but they have great spiritual significance. Now, unless you live under a rock, which you might, if you live under a rock, you're probably aware that almost everyone has a cell phone. Now, spoiler alert, confession, my husband and I each do have a cell phone. They are stored in Faraday boxes, which I made. I have a video up on that in which I show how to make one for super cheap. You don't need skills to do it. And you don't need much money, just a few bucks. And it works very well for blocking any frequencies that are emitted from the cell phones, because just because your cell phone is turned off doesn't mean it's not emitting radio frequency radiation, because it does. It still is. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to be tracked by law enforcement. Right? All right. So, as I said, we do have each a cell phone. Mine hasn't been turned on for probably 2 years. It's just an emergency cell phone. It's less than $100 a year that I spend just to keep it on. And it's only for if my husband isn't home and our landline goes down. Actually, it's via fiber now because AT&T closed down our landline. Thank you, AT&T. And landlines are going, friends. Most states have legislation on the books to legally close down landlines. So be aware, if you have a landline, it's only a matter of time before you get a letter or they just shut it down without warning, like it happened for us. That was super fun. We paid our bill. That's not the problem. They just don't want people to have landlines, as evidenced in the past 2 years. Every time we call 811 before you dig, AT&T never shows up. They want their lines to be cut. They want not to have to deal with landlines anymore. And that's legal. So the fact of the matter is that I am extremely sensitive to radio frequencies, to the extent that it will close my throat on me in some cases, requiring the use of emergency epinephrine. I will drop a link below to how a smart meter almost killed me 3 times, an article I wrote quite some time ago. I battle mast cell activation syndrome, very severe case, very unusual to get this bad. And as EMFs degranulate mast cells, and mast cells are all over in your body, and chemicals are dumped out as a result of mast cell degranulation, you can have symptoms in any organ, any system of your body as a result of exposure to radio frequencies. Specifically, I don't know if EMFs of other sorts, such as dirty electricity and such, have been studied as much as radio frequencies have, as far as mast cells go. I haven't seen much research besides exposure to radio frequencies. But at the same time, I need to have something for emergencies, and if I need to get a hold of my husband while he's not here, then he has a cell phone so that he can do so. But otherwise, they're in a Faraday box. We have both had problems with our cell phones being remotely turned on, which I thought was just insane when I heard someone mention that online years ago happening to her. But then it happened to us. And I have just some crummy third-party carrier plan, and my husband has Verizon, and it happened to both of us. And it actually happened to someone that came onto our property once as well. I'm not sure what carrier he had, but I don't think he accidentally left it on. I think it was remotely turned on. It happens. Not a conspiracy theory, because it happens. If you have a cell phone, I highly recommend making a Faraday box for it. You can also just put it in a metal tin. That can work, potentially. And I have a video, which I'll link to below, as to how to make the Faraday box. Unless you live under a rock, you know that people walk around holding their cell phone like this all the time. And this is how people interact. This is how people look in waiting rooms. And this is how people look at work. And this is how people look when they're having fun and at play. And this is how people look when they're at home with their families. And this is how people look when they're eating dinner with their families. Wow. Don't you think there's some sort of spiritual significance there? Besides the health risks, besides the fact that radio frequencies cause great harm, cell phones divide us as humans. They take away part of our humanity, in my personal opinion. And the way they do this is they suck us into this world that doesn't even exist, really. This virtual world. And when you're in this virtual world, your eyes are down here. They're not looking at you. I'm sorry, I just pointed at you. I know some people find that very offensive. I did not mean to offend anybody. They're not looking at their family. They're not looking at their friends. They're not looking around them. They're not enjoying the beauty of nature, which I'm looking at the beauty of nature right now because we live in the woods. And they aren't seeing what's going on around them. They aren't interacting with other people. They aren't appreciating their humanity. People need people. Isolation is one of the most effective torture mechanisms. Think about that. And then think about the zombie apocalypse of 2020 or 2019, however you want to say it. That virus and the response. People need people. Part of what makes us human is the way that we interact with people. It's language. And if you consider how few people are able to even speak coherently these days, because they're used to putting TY instead of thank you and, you know, and also their fingers hurt because that's all they do. That's how they communicate. Teenagers, kids, families sit in their living rooms looking at their phones instead of looking at each other and appreciating each other, enjoying their relationship. Cell phones hurt relationships. Now, of course, I understand that there are some aspects that can be beneficial, but for the most part, they're tearing people apart. They're destroying people. I understand there's a communication aspect. You're constantly in communication, potentially, with people. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. We had landlines. If you went anywhere, there was a landline there at the movie theater or at the mall where you could call if you needed to. If you were running late and you were going to be late for curfew, then you call your parents, or if you want to stay at a friend's house, you call from your friend's phone. Hey, Mom, can I stay the night? Yeah, sure, honey. You know, we were able to survive as a species just fine without being in constant communication with each other because we learned how to use English. We learned how to communicate and plan and say, hey, Mom and Dad, I'm going to the mall. I'll be back for dinner. Is that all right? Or the like. If you were in after-school sports, your parents probably knew not to expect you home until after a certain time because you had sports practice or you had a game, or maybe your parents would come to the game and then you'd go home with your parents from there. I mean, if you were at school, then you called from school, from the phone at school for your parents to come get you. Today, society tells us that we can't live without a cell phone. They are highly addictive. The mechanism, reward system that is used by casinos is the same reward system, reward schedule, quite frankly, that is used by cell phones, by Facebook. That is the most addictive rewards system that is known to psychology today. So of course cell phones are addictive. They're designed to be addictive. Facebook is designed to be addictive. Did you know that? It is intentionally designed to do so. And what's his name who started Facebook? billionaire or whatever. He says so. He readily admits it. Yeah, I wanted it to be addictive. He's okay with that. He's cool with that. Are you? I'm not. So if you look just at the word cell phone, cell phone, there are two ways we can go about this. One is at the cellular level. Electromagnetic radiation harms us at a cellular level. Cell phone. The other way we can look at this is cell phone, a jail, a prison cell. We are imprisoned by this device. Now, I don't remember where it was at that I read recently in the Bible, a quote where it talked about, I think it said, Satan and his devices. Oh my goodness. Satan and his devices. This is Satan's device, friends. It is designed to imprison us. It's designed to isolate us. We feel like we're connected, but in reality, we're not connected. People need to touch one another. That's another form of torture, is withholding touch. Now, babies who are diagnosed with failure to thrive generally are not held. They're generally not touched. Now, when my mom was sick in the hospital, for example, one of the first things I told my brother is that you need to touch her. Because I would have to go shower now and eat now and then. And so I would go shower and eat and come back. I lived in the hospital for 7 weeks with her to take care of her. And also when my dad passed away, that was one of the first things that I told him. And that was 2003. That was a long time ago. I told my brother, because I wasn't living near there. I was going to college. I told him that you need to touch my mom frequently because she needs that for her health. I knew that in 2003. I was only 21 then. People need to touch each other. People need to look at each other in the eye. People need to speak with one another. In person. In person. Isolation is literally torture. So, cell phone is a prison. People are so obsessed with the world and with work, with their job, that they miss what's happening in their children's lives. They miss important milestones. Now, there's been research done when it comes to taking pictures and videos that you are far less likely to retain a memory of a life event if you are videotaping it or taking pictures of it. So it messes with our brains too. Besides just basically programming us, besides the basic psychology of how they work, besides behavior change. The fact of the matter is that Satan doesn't want us to be paying attention to what God wants. He wants to distract us with the world, and part of the way he does that is the way that the current system is set up as far as jobs go. You have to think about work or employment or jobs, making ends meet, paying your bills almost all of the time just in order to make ends meet, rather than focusing on God and listening to him. It's rather telling as to the times that we are living in my opinion, besides, of course, the fact that the first seal has been opened. March 2020. That happened. The world is just easy to be obsessed with, and that's what most people are obsessed with, rather than keeping their eyes on the prize. Speaking of looking up, keeping our eyes on the prize, if you are looking down all of the time, how are you going to see the signs in the heavens? How are you going to see them? how are you going to see what's happening up there? But there's some really weird stuff going on up. Okay. There's some really weird stuff going on up in the heavens, and I'm sorry, I just got tongue tied. The stars seem a little bit different. They don't seem as bright, in my opinion, and there seems to be fewer stars, which is kind of weird, in my opinion. Again, just an observation. Obviously, we live in the middle of a woods, so we see a lot outside. There's just a lot to look for up in the sky, and we're told to watch. We're told to watch. Look up for your redemption draws near. We're not told look down at your cell phone. Told look up, watch for your redemption draws near. So another thing to consider with cell phones is that right there. That takes away what God has told us to do and prevents us from doing that and following his word. Thanks so much for being here, friends. Have a beautiful and blessed day.